Percy with an early run, he's onside this time, it's 1-1. Andre Schürrle, it's 7. It's Mario Götze, what a goal! What a goal to win a World Cup!
Hello there and welcome back to the Beermat World Cup podcast. And if you thought that the group stage was exciting, when we're getting into the business end of the tournament now, the round of 16, today it started off with an absolute fucking bang. 2 really good games, unbelievable goals. Starting off, France 4, Argentina 3. Now, I will admit, going into this, I've got question marks over both France and Argentina in the sense of, well, first of all, Argentina only squeaked through to this point, and you wondered whether playing against a side that on paper would blow them out of the water, and we'll get to that in a bit. And on the flip side, that's probably France's issue right now, which is the idea that like they're a good side on paper, but haven't quite gotten it right so far yet. And my word, what an exhibition of football. That second half in particular is one of the best afternoons in the sunshine. It's just incredible. This is why this World Cup has been one of the best so far, and long may it continue. If this is what we're getting now, then my word, the later stages are going to be incredible. Now, first things first, delving a little bit more in depthly into this game. I found it really interesting that when France were all over them after the first goal, while it was sort of what you were expecting, I think they've got to be a bit more callous. I think they've got to be a bit more clever when it comes to killing off a game, which is, fun enough, what they did in the second half. They were everything that you wanted from a side and from one player very, very specifically. But in terms of football being football, they were all over him in that first half, and then right at the death, Angel Di Maria, what a hit. Absolutely perfectly setting it up for the second half, 1-1, and then just fucking, as I mentioned, mayhem ensues with question marks of offside potentially there when Messi goes to cross that ball and it gets sort of deflected in off Mercado in the end to make it 2-1 after the second half resumption of play. And then just, I could honestly spend the next 20 minutes just talking about this goal, describing it again and again and again, because the French second goal, Benjamin Pavard, not exactly the most household name of a footballer, and he's a defender. This kid, my word, it's the best strike of a football I've seen for quite some time. The purest hit. And there's an angle on one of the replays from behind the goal you've got to go and check out. You must have seen it on Match of the Day. If not, go and look, because it's absolutely a thing of beauty. It is artistry. It is incredible. And speaking of all of that, when the game's on the line at 2-2, this is the point where we look to the superstars, the guys that get all the plaudits. We look to the top of the game. And in this particular instance, we had on one side of the pitch my favourite footballer of all time. I think he's undoubtedly the greatest to have played the game in Lionel Messi. And he's got his own checkered past with the Argentina setup and the players he has around him. Maybe not necessarily getting it done in the moments he needs them to the most. So all that weight on one side. And then the other, you've got the exuberance and the fearlessness of youth. And it's quite impressive, actually, because, and this is why, for as much as I will big up the virtues of the Champions League, in a World Cup, announcing yourself to everyone, because it's not just the football purists that are watching Champions League games and watching the French League specifically, to see this guy's rise, to see how he's coming up, and he's just in front of the world stage today. Kylian Mbappe has absolutely announced himself. If you didn't know who he was already, now you know. And this kid, my word, it's a mouth-watering prospect to what he could go on to be based on that second half performance. He gets the one. It's a very good movement and shifting the ball between his legs, because it looks like there's no space there whatsoever, and with one touch he manages to drag himself away. Looks like he's going a little bit too wide. Question marks over the keeper slightly, but gets France ahead. And then after that, honestly, it could have been a rout. from everything that we saw in the first half, where France were on top but couldn't quite get the killer pass or get the shot on target as they would have wanted to, it was 4-2, and then I think Giroud had a really good chance to make it 5. It looked like it could have been absolutely anything, and finally it was like, okay, this is the France side that, as I mentioned, on paper, everything's going to go great, and they finally sort of clicked before our eyes. But then again, this is why I have my reservations about this French side. And also as well, kind of why you can't count out a South American side, especially one that has the resources to call off the bench. Someone like Sergio Aguero, and we all know he's got history in the past with scoring very important late goals. And you had a sneaky feeling that there was enough time left that if Argentina got one maybe 5 minutes earlier than they actually did, I really would have liked to have seen France's mental state, fragility, whether they were able to see the remaining minutes out in that instance, because it was one of those games of football where chaos was ready to break out at any moment, and everything that you'd assumed up until that point, it'd just be flipped on its head in a heartbeat. And I've got to be honest with you, I didn't want it to end. Extra time in that would have been absolutely perfect. And it's an interesting one now, because we're sort of transitioning over to the later game that has just sort of finished, and this idea of Messi at international level, is he ever going to be able to do it, get him over the line in a World Cup, etc., etc. They squeaked through this group stage, remember, and there was an argument to suggest that if they got on this run, if they just got through one game, it would have been enough to give them the momentum and the drive to push on. But ultimately, it's a very lopsided squad. The pieces don't click enough for what you would like, given their respective qualities. And it's all well and good bringing Aguero off the bench, and I actually thought he did really well for the minutes that he had. But you see in that moment both the strengths and the weaknesses of the Argentina side, in that you could sort of see this before the third, actually, that their aggression was what was going to keep them going, and they weren't just going to roll over and die and allow this French side to get the 5 or 6 that it looked like they were going to get. But in the dying embers of this game, it boiled over, and Pogba gets fucking blasted in the back, and you're just thinking to yourself, there's just so much there that could be good. In a weird way, you'd almost wish they had a worse side, but just, I do feel, and I do fear, for as much as I'm going to be bigging up Mbappe and saying like he's the guy, it's not quite a passing of the torch, this almost, because France have still got a lot of fucking work to do, in my opinion, in this tournament. But this could be the last time we see Messi in a World Cup, and for all the arguments that come out of this whole, he's got to do it for Argentina before we take him seriously, even though he does it constantly on a year-by-year basis for Barcelona and in the Champions League, there's got to be a time and a point where you've got to lay down that aspect, as it were, and I think we might be at that point right now. We'll see. He's already retired and come back, so we don't know. And though it would be a shame for international football, I do think Argentina themselves may actually need to be prepared to move on, and it might be best for both at this stage, I don't know. And obviously, when you're talking about Lionel Messi being on the downward, that brings a smile to the face of 50% of football fans everywhere, the wrong 50% of footballers that think Cristiano Ronaldo is the greatest footballer of all time. And I'd like to point out, I do actually have them 1 and 2 in all time, not just modern day. So I'm not just bigging up this idea of what's going on right now, I'm just going full stop. But the fact of the matter is, he's not number 1, just accept it. And the theory behind this game was going to be, you've got Ronaldo, you've got Suarez, and funny enough, it was someone outside of those two that really did the damage. And I was interested to see that we had 7 goals in the first game, and this game, you would have bet your house on it being a 0-0. But once again, just because this World Cup is so fucking goal-filled spectacular, we get a goal so early that sets the tone and allows the game to come to life in a way that I suspect maybe even both sides would have been happier the longer it did go goalless. And again, we're talking about good goals today. Absolutely treated to another one by Edson Cavani for the opener. One of the best 1-2s over the course of something like 70 yards that I've ever seen. Knocks it out to Suarez from right to left. Suarez holds it, allows the run to be made. Perfect cross. unbelievable header, 1-0 Uruguay, and you're thinking to yourself, now finally, can we get the... I talked about what Argentina have done in this tournament, but Uruguay, again, they're another side that have that grit, that have that solid, dogged determination, but they haven't looked anywhere near like the same Uruguay side that we've been used to the last couple of World Cups. They're not quite there, and Portugal have really done a number on quite a few teams, especially in the Euros, obviously, when they won it. So you wondered how this game will play out now with Uruguay in the position of going in front, whereas if Portugal had gone one in front, you would have felt they'd have been more capable of seeing it out. And as it played out, it sort of did a very familiar thing that the previous game did, which it flips immediately when you get to just after half-time in this instance, instead of just before, when Portugal score, and Pepe with the header. I mean, he's known for just solid headers and fouls, so if he's not fouling someone, then he's got to be scoring an unbelievable header. It's a solid, absolute meaty piece of footballing, I don't know, gristle, and gets Portugal back in it. You think to yourself at that point, okay, now they've got the platform and now they could go on and do everything I suggested before that they might be able to do to Uruguay, but it became the battle that we knew it would. And out of that battle, again, I know I mentioned it before, we're talking about Suarez, talking about Ronaldo, it was Edson Cavani that ultimately finishes this game off and has his signature all over it almost. And almost, incidentally, casts a shadow over their prospects later on in the tournament because he went off the pitch with an injury and they're going to need him. And I think the thing is that Cavani is one of those footballers, like Ibrahimovic before him, that because he doesn't play over here, we don't necessarily get the full package of him. We see him time and again in the Champions League, and the negative performances are always doubly highlighted, and the times when he does get a couple of goals, it's like, oh, it's only Red Star Belgrade or something like that. I'm not going to say underrated, overrated. I would suggest misrepresented, in the sense that you can't use such a small sample size to judge someone that plays at this level. And I think what we saw today was him at his best, and an answer to a lot of the questions that people have said about him in the media in this country. And as I said, him going off, it was, shall we say, not exactly the most composed Uruguay finish to a game that they would have liked. There was Muslera going down. I think that was during the incident with Cavani, actually. Losing the ball, a bit more composure on that finish, ironically enough, would have given Portugal the equaliser. And you're just thinking to yourself, they only need one chance, and then right at the death, ball flashed across the box, someone to get near it. I think about 14 players fell down. I mean, I know VAR is like looking for everything, but in this instance, it's going to be a case of like, it was like a bowling ball sort of situation, and just everyone went down, and Uruguay managed to just about get it clear. And then they get the victory, and then they move on, and now we have Uruguay against France to look forward to. And what I will say is this: we need to see how Cavani comes through the fitness test before Friday's game. And although they haven't actually gotten quite into high gear just yet, I do wonder if this Argentina side that, as I've mentioned, has had problems this tournament, and has caused them that many issues. Uruguay aren't firing on all cylinders themselves, but what I will say is they're playing slightly better than the Argentina side that was very nearly eliminated. They've been in second gear for most of the tournament, and you've got, if Cavani comes through, a strike force that can be more relied upon than Messi plus whatever random thing they're trying to fit next to him at this particular point in time. And I'm just going to suggest that if you're in control of that many games, and France have been absolutely head and shoulders above, and the performance from Mbappe's first goal to about 75-80 was as comprehensive, as fearsome and as frightening as we've seen from any team in this tournament so far. It wasn't just Mbappe putting his hand up and saying, look, I'm the next global superstar. This was France as a whole, as a team, going, do you know what? We're going to be the ones that are going to say we're going to go and win this tournament now. And they've got a long way to go yet, but that is the standard, shall we say. But if, within all this, you can still concede 3 to an Argentina side that I'm not massively a fan of, Uruguay, if Cavani gets there, caused them a lot of problems. And of course, even if he's not there, you've got Suarez, who we already know is going to be a thorn in the side of anyone and will literally do anything it takes to get his country over the line. Hopefully there's going to be no goal line clearances necessary, but if he has to get the goalie gloves ready, I'm sure he will be ready. Man, I tell you what, this World Cup has been such an absolute joy, and there was an element of, once you get past the group stage, the games themselves become a little bit tighter and a little bit more angsty because it's single elimination now. One bad 90 minutes and you're out. We've seen teams that are actually through to this stage so far have a couple of dodgy 90 minutes in them. Even France against Denmark, that was really poor. I know they're already through, and I can't really hammer them too much, but still, at this point in time, this is when it really matters. This is when it counts, and it generally tends to tighten up a little, unless you've got a really weird mismatch of teams and playing styles. So, what a way to kick it off today. 7 goals in one game, 3 goals in the other, 2 absolute beauties from Cavani. And world class. I'm not having there was going to be a goal better scored in this tournament than Pavard's. So just end that conversation right now. Goal of the tournament has been won, and it just makes you wonder, what else is there left to come? This is going to be one hell of a finish to a tournament that's already delighted us, and I cannot wait for more. Thank you for listening to the Beermat World Cup podcast. We're going to get to you tomorrow with some more knockout round action.